Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to demystify something that sounds really intimidating but is actually quite fascinating: scientific research papers and review papers. By the end of this lecture, you'll understand what they are, why they exist, and why they're absolutely critical for both science and your future career. Before we dive into papers, let's start with the basics. What is science? And I mean, really, what is it? Science is the systematic enterprise of building and organizing knowledge through testable explanations and predictions about the universe. It's not magic, it's not guessing, it's a structured way of figuring things out. Here's the scientific method in a nutshell. You ask a question, design an experiment, collect data, and analyze your results. Simple, right? Well, sort of. The devil is in the details. Now imagine you've just discovered something amazing. Maybe you figured out why plants grow toward light, or you found a new way to treat a disease. How do you tell other scientists? Do you just post it on social media, tweet it out, send a group text? This is where research papers come in. They're the official, peer-reviewed way scientists communicate their discoveries to the world. A research paper is a detailed written document that presents original research findings. It's like a recipe. But instead of telling you how to make cookies, it tells you exactly what the scientists did, what they found, and what it means. If you've ever written a lab report in school, a research paper is basically that, but way more detailed, way more rigorous, and written for other experts in the field. Plus, it usually takes months or even years to complete. Let's break down what's actually in a research paper. Every research paper follows a pretty standard structure, and there's a good reason for that. First, you have the title. This tells you what the paper is about in usually 10 words or less. Sometimes they're exciting, like discovery of a new planet, but often they're more like observations on the enzymatic activity of alpha amylase under various pH conditions. Riveting stuff, right? Next is the abstract. This is like the movie trailer for your research. It's a short paragraph, usually 150 to 250 words, that summarizes the entire paper. Why did you do this research? What did you do? What did you find? Why does it matter? It's the most read part of any paper because people use it to decide if they want to read the whole thing. The introduction sets up your research. It explains the background, what's already known, what's not known, and why your research matters. It's like the opening scene of a movie that establishes the world before the action starts. The methods section is crucial. This is where you describe exactly what you did in excruciating detail. And I mean excruciating. You need enough detail that another scientist could read your methods and repeat your experiment exactly. This is a core principle of science: reproducibility. Why so much detail? Because science isn't about trust, it's about verification. If your results are real, other scientists should be able to do the same experiment and get similar results. No replication, no trust. The results section presents your data. Just the facts, no interpretation yet. You show your graphs, tables, measurements, observations. You might say, the temperature increased by 15 degrees Celsius, but you don't yet say what that means or why it happened. Here's what a typical results graph might look like: clean, clear, and objective, just showing the data without bias. The discussion is where things get interesting. This is where you interpret your results. What do they mean? How do they fit with existing knowledge? What are the limitations of your study? What questions does this raise? This is where scientific thinking really shines. The conclusion summarizes your main findings and their significance. It's like the final scene of a movie that ties everything together. Finally, you have the references, or bibliography. This lists every single source you cited in your paper. And in science, you cite a lot. A typical research paper might have 20, 50, or even 100 references. This shows that your work builds on existing knowledge and gives credit where it's due. Okay, so that's a research paper. But what about review papers? Are they the same thing? Spoiler alert, they're not. Here's the key difference. A research paper presents original, new research. A review paper doesn't present new data. Instead, it summarizes and synthesizes existing research on a topic. Think of a review paper like this. Imagine you want to learn about climate change, but there are literally thousands of research papers on the topic. Who has time to read all of those? A review paper does that work for you. It reads all those papers, synthesizes the information, and presents a comprehensive overview. Here's how it works. You have dozens or hundreds of individual research papers, and the review paper synthesizes all of them into one coherent narrative. It's like the Cliff Notes of scientific research. Review papers do more than just summarize. They identify patterns, highlight controversies, point out gaps in knowledge, and suggest directions for future research. They are incredibly valuable for researchers and students alike. If you're new to a field, reading a good review paper is the fastest way to get up to speed. It's like having an expert guide you through the landscape of knowledge. Now you might be asking yourself, why do we need all this formality? Why can't scientists just share their findings in simpler ways? Great question. Let me tell you why. First, quality control. Before a research paper gets published, it goes through peer review. This means other experts in the field read it, critique it, and make sure it's sound. They check for errors, flawed logic, and questionable conclusions. It's like having your homework graded by the toughest teachers in the world. Is peer review perfect? No. Sometimes bad papers slip through, and sometimes good papers get rejected. But it's the best quality control system we have for science. It keeps the standard high. Second, research papers allow science to build on its Chi line. Isaac Newton famously said, "If I have seen further, it is by standing on the shoulders of giants." Every scientific discovery builds on what came before. Papers document that chain of knowledge. Science is cumulative. Each generation of scientists builds on the work of previous generations. Research papers are the building blocks of this tower of knowledge. Third, reproducibility. Science isn't about believing, it's about verifying. If you claim you discovered something, other scientists need to be able to repeat your work and confirm it. The detailed methods and papers make this possible. Remember the cold fusion controversy in 1989? Scientists claimed they'd achieved nuclear fusion at room temperature, which would have been revolutionary. But when other labs tried to replicate it, they couldn't. That's why reproducibility matters. It protects science from false claims. Fourth, and let's be honest here, career advancement. In academia, there's a saying, publish or perish. Scientists are evaluated largely on their publications. The more high-quality papers you publish, the better your career prospects. It's not just about ego. Funding, tenure, and job opportunities depend on it. Is this system perfect? Debatable. Some argue it encourages quantity over quality. But it does incentivize scientists to share their work, which benefits everyone. Let's talk about what actually happens when you write a research paper. It's not as simple as writing it up and hitting publish. First, you do the research. This can take months or years. You design experiments, collect data, analyze results. This is the hard part. Then, you write the paper. This itself can take weeks or months. You're not just describing what you did. You're crafting a narrative that convinces others your work is important and correct. You submit your paper to a scientific journal. There are thousands of journals, each specializing in different fields. Nature, Science, Cell, The Lancet. These are some of the most prestigious. Getting published in a top journal is a huge deal. The journal sends your paper to experts for peer review. This can take months. Reviewers read your paper carefully and send back comments. They might say it's great, they might suggest changes, or they might recommend rejection. Usually, you need to revise your paper based on reviewer comments. You might go through multiple rounds of revision. It's tedious, but it makes the paper stronger. Finally, if the journal accepts your paper, it gets published. Your work becomes part of the permanent scientific record. Other scientists can now read it, cite it, and build on it. Congratulations, you've contributed to human knowledge. So where do review papers fit in this ecosystem? Let me explain with an analogy. Think of it this way. Research papers are individual trees, and review papers show you the entire forest. Research papers give you deep detail on one specific thing. Review papers give you the big picture. Science moves fast, really fast. Thousands of papers are published every day. No one can read them all. Review papers help scientists stay current without drowning in information. Review papers are especially valuable for interdisciplinary work. If you're a biologist who needs to understand some chemistry, reading a chemistry review paper is much more efficient than reading 50 individual chemistry research papers. Let's talk about why this matters for you, even if you don't plan to become a research scientist. First, understanding research papers helps you evaluate scientific claims. We live in an age of information overload. You see headlines every day? Coffee causes cancer. Coffee prevents cancer. How do you know what to believe? By reading the actual research papers, or at least understanding how they work. This protects you from pseudoscience and misinformation. If someone claims they have a miracle cure, you can ask, where's the peer-reviewed research? If they can't provide it, that's a red flag. Second, many careers require you to read scientific literature. Medicine, obviously. But also engineering, data science, policymaking, journalism, law, and many others. Being able to read and understand a research paper is a valuable skill. Third, engaging with scientific papers develops critical thinking. You learn to evaluate evidence, identify logical flaws, distinguish correlation from causation, and think analytically. These skills are valuable in any career. Let me give you some examples of research papers that changed the world. In 1953, James Watson and Francis Crick published a one-page paper in Nature describing the double helix structure of DNA, one page. It revolutionized biology and medicine. That's the power of a research paper. The double helix structure of DNA, one of the most important discoveries in history, published in a research paper. Einstein's 1905 paper on special relativity. It fundamentally changed our understanding of space, time, and the universe, and it all started as a research paper. More recently, the papers describing the mRNA vaccines for COVID-19. These papers documented groundbreaking technology that saved millions of lives. The research was peer-reviewed, scrutinized, and verified before the vaccines were deployed. Let's address some common misconceptions about scientific papers. Misconception number 1. One paper proves something definitively. Not true. Science is about accumulating evidence. One paper suggests, multiple papers confirm. A single study is just one piece of the puzzle. This is why review papers are so valuable. They show you the weight of evidence across many studies. If 50 papers say one thing and 2 papers say the opposite, the 50 papers probably have it right. Misconception number 2. Peer-reviewed means it's perfect and true. Nope. Peer review means it met a certain quality standard, but papers can still be wrong. Science is self-correcting. Wrong papers get challenged and eventually retracted or superseded. Misconception number 3. You need a PhD to read research papers. False. Yes, papers use technical language, but with patience and maybe a dictionary, anyone can learn to read them. Start with review papers and work your way up. Speaking of reading papers, let me give you a strategy. Don't read a paper like you read a novel, from start to finish. Step 1. Read the abstract. This tells you if the paper is relevant to what you're looking for. Step 2. Look at the figures and tables. These often tell the story of the paper visually. You can understand a lot just from the graphs. Step 3. Read the introduction and conclusion. These give you the context and the main takeaways. Step 4. Skim the methods and results. You don't need to understand every detail unless you're trying to replicate the work. Step 5. Read the discussion carefully. This is where the authors interpret their findings and explain the significance. And here's the key. Don't expect to understand everything on your first read. Even experts often need to read papers multiple times. It's okay to look things up, ask questions, and take your time. Before we wrap up, let's talk about where scientific publishing is headed. The open access movement is gaining momentum. Traditionally, scientific journals charge subscription fees, which means many people can't access papers. Open access journals make papers freely available to everyone. This democratizes knowledge. Preprint servers like RxViv and bioRxiv allow scientists to share papers before peer review. This speeds up the dissemination of knowledge. During COVID-19, preprints were crucial for rapid information sharing. Artificial intelligence is starting to help with literature reviews and even identifying patterns across thousands of papers. This could revolutionize how we synthesize scientific knowledge. But no matter how technology evolves, peer review and rigorous standards will remain essential. Science needs quality control to maintain credibility. Let me give you some practical advice if you're a student. Start reading papers early. Even if you find them intimidating, the more you read, the easier it gets. Think of it like learning a new language. Use Google Scholar to find papers. It's free and indexes millions of scientific articles. You can search by topic, author, or citation. Don't be afraid to email authors with questions. Most scientists are happy to discuss their work with genuinely interested people. The worst they can do is not reply. Join journal clubs or discussion groups where people read and discuss papers together. This helps you learn from others and see different perspectives. Practice writing summaries of papers you read. This forces you to really understand the material and improves your scientific writing skills. Let's zoom out and look at the big picture. Research papers and review papers are fundamental to how science works. They're how we build collective knowledge, verify discoveries, and advance human understanding. Are they perfect? No. The system has flaws. Publishing can be slow, expensive, and sometimes biased. But it's the best system we have for ensuring quality and building on reliable knowledge. Understanding how scientific papers work empowers you. As a citizen, it helps you make informed decisions. As a professional, it opens doors to many careers. As a thinker, it sharpens your mind. Let me leave you with some final thoughts. Science is not done by lone geniuses in isolated labs. It's a collaborative, cumulative enterprise. Research papers are the threads that weave together this tapestry of knowledge. Every paper, even small incremental ones, contributes to progress. Science moves forward not through giant leaps alone, but through countless small steps documented in countless papers. And here's the exciting part. You can be part of this process. Whether you become a researcher, a clinician, an engineer, or just an informed citizen, understanding scientific literature connects you to humanity's greatest adventure, the quest for knowledge. One final question you might have. What if I want to write a research paper myself? Where do I start? Well, start by doing research. Find a question that interests you, design a study, collect data. This might be a class project, an independent study, or work in a research lab. Read lots of papers in your field to learn the style and conventions. Every field has its own norms. Work with a mentor who has publishing experience. They can guide you through the process and help you avoid common pitfalls. Start small. Maybe present a poster at a conference or give a talk. These are stepping stones to writing a full paper. And don't be discouraged by rejection. Even famous scientists get papers rejected. It's part of the process. Learn from the feedback and keep improving. Let's wrap up everything we've covered today. Research papers present original findings with rigorous detail, allowing verification and replication. Review papers synthesize existing knowledge, giving us the big picture and identifying gaps. Both types of papers are essential for scientific progress, quality control, and the advancement of human knowledge. Understanding how they work is valuable for any educated person in the modern world, regardless of career path. Reading scientific papers is a skill that anyone can develop with practice and patience. Thank you for your attention. I hope this lecture has demystified scientific papers and shown you why they're so important. Remember, every great discovery started with someone asking a question and documenting the answer. Maybe someday that someone will be you. Now go forth and read some papers.